Welcome back to the Reality Guys. I'm your host, Brian, along with my co-host and friend, Lou.
How you doing, guys?
So we're here to talk Alone, Season 10, Episode 2, entitled Ties That Bind. So we finally got to be introduced to the five remaining cast members. We already kind of got a layout of the land, so not a lot of shock to us about the season being fresh and new. But Lou, you said pre-show again that you have some thoughts before we meet the cast. Anything about the five we met or individuals?
Well, yeah, there's a couple thoughts. First, I'll say this up top in case you have to cut it out. But how about Melanie being an absolute baddie, being a model from London, and then doing a 180 almost and becoming a survival, guide or pro.
Yeah.
You don't see that too often.
No, I
Um,
agree. It's
I,
funny that like the path that people take when they become into this or any hobby that you're into, like the changes that someone can go through to like if you looked at her, you wouldn't expect those things. So I actually think that's kind of cool. Like it makes me want to root for her more that she like had this different type of lifestyle, moved to the US and now and it's completely different than probably anybody she knew in her 20s and 30s knew her from.
right, right. Well, first of all, I mean, this lifestyle is so unique
Different.
to begin
Yeah.
with. You have to go through, I mean, like, think about even when you're young, like the ingrained, I mean, maybe it's different in other countries, but like United States ingrained like capitalism, capitalism, capitalism. Like
Hmm.
everyone's of us is materialistic in some way, shape, or form. And these people like truly go against the grain on all of that. Like
Hmm.
you have to really not care what other people think about your material values and stuff like that. So no, but yeah, it does definitely make me want to root for her more because that big swing and her becoming so proficient to make it on the show definitely is intriguing. It adds to her storyline.
Right. 'Cause I
Um,
feel like that's kind of the stuff that separates who you in the early game, like when everyone's still around, who you're rooting for. Because I would say last episode, it was Lee. Like I thought Lee
but
had the coolest story. I mean, obviously, I don't. I'm rooting for everyone to do well, but
but
there's like those little tiny factors that like put these people above other ones. And I would say Melanie. And I mean, I liked Mikey's story.
right,
Everyone's out there for a reason, and it really what it comes down to. But I like Mikey's, and I just worry about him a little bit. But before we move over to the other people, I want to say Melanie, 53. She's from New York, originally from London. She like kind of, I think it's like upstate. She lives in like the Adirondacks, I think she said. So just, I was definitely blown away when like they did, because they didn't tell you at first. They just show her peeing. Like I thought
right,
that
right,
whole interaction was really funny. I love when they do these candid shots of the like contestants doing funny things, and they're like,
right,
"Oh, I'm embarrassed," or like, "Oh, I hope you do that," or they show like
right,
they talk to the camera like, "Hey, I hope they show this." So I enjoy those things because it's like that's what you would do out there. You need to keep your mind fresh and not
right,
take everything super seriously.
right. Well, and also like that you bring up an interesting point there because I imagine there's no way to delete any video, right? Like they don't
No,
want
definitely
them
not.
to like remove something that they may have done illegally or like outside the rules of the thing. So I'm assuming like, and I'm pretty sure they might have a little bit of say, but like they probably have zero
Not
say
much.
in what gets on there, right? Like I'm sure there's probably like some like I bet that if like they she probably said I'm okay with you using that, but the framing of it, because I'm pretty sure the framing of it gave us a little bit more than what was shown. I'm pretty sure she had to say like what was framed. Because like going over to that, like just jumping over to another one, Wyatt, who like we saw a full nude
Yeah.
shot of him. So that definitely wasn't the issue there. Um, just going back to Melanie though, I did my same rundown of the things that they brought, the 10
Yeah.
unique items. Um, the one thing working against Melanie, I think, is she brought two of her items are food rations, which I think in a bind could really help her extend her stay. But I don't think that's a winning strategy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, because you rely you're like, oh, I don't need to hunt today or early in the game. Like I
Right,
have these food rations. So I
right.
get that. That's I'm glad you looked these things up because
Yeah.
I don't.
Well, I just think it's interesting because like I'm always interested. I will say a lot of it again, like 90% of it, they're all picking the same
Yeah.
thing.
Right.
Um, but the two portions of food rations makes me think that one, she might not be as confident as everyone else in her hunting skills, but like we said again, like each one of these items, they're so valuable in the
Mhm.
long game that losing one, like we saw last week when was it Cade or
Who lost the
yeah,
arrows?
who lost the
Yeah.
arrows?
Yep.
Yeah, like losing one item is such a mental devastating blow that
Yeah.
like you go through those food rations. Fuck, like
Mhm. Mhm.
what do
Right.
I do?
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
yeah, but just on top of that, overall, do you think I just think this group, and maybe it's just my hunting bias coming in here. I just think they seem weaker than the first group,
I,
less secure. I mean, it could just be that they haven't caught anything. It could be their location still, right? Like
mhm.
the split up could have been the first five that we put on this side of the territory. We go through
Right.
first. The second side we put on this side of the territory, and like that side of the territory is less, less easier to game hunt and catch things. But really, we only saw what Mikey catch a grouse and
Yeah, so I
uh,
wrote everything down. So Wyatt catches a fish, 35-inch fish in his gill net. Taz gets a squirrel. Mikey gets a grouse. Taz gets a big trout, but then that's when he tries to smoke it and he burns it down.
right, and that. I mean, you just want to talk about that? Like, that's a
Well,
huge
actually,
devastating.
before we move over there, and I do want to stick with the food stuff because I really like that you notice that too. I think that they for the first episode you want you want the best stuff
Right,
early because you want the viewer to stick. I mean, we're
right,
the type of people we're going to watch no matter what. But if
right,
you're new to this show and like you're seeing this review of our page talking about it, you're like, hey, I'm gonna check the show out. Episode one is more pulling you in like, oh, this is cool, like they're getting
right.
stuff, they're like, and that's how it is on shows. Like the first show's got a pop, and I still, this one wasn't as good, but I still enjoyed it because we get to meet the cast. But I just want to run
100%.
through the cast super quick. And I wrote down something that I don't know if you noticed it or not, but I just, because I didn't do it last time. Melanie, 53, New York, she prioritized her shelter over food. Wyatt, 51, he's from Canada, he prioritized food over shelter. And 56, who we barely saw, she's from
Mhm.
Wisconsin, she prioritized shelter. Taz, 35, Massachusetts, he prioritized food. Mikey, 31, from Georgia, he prioritized food. And we talked about this last week. I don't think you need to do a shelter
No,
right
I
away. And
100%
that's why
agree.
you said that last week. So that's why I said when I watch this week, I want to write down these new people. I want to know what their mindsets are,
Right,
and then we can track how they do with the show.
right. I 100% agree with you. That's just me. Also, it doesn't seem like it doesn't seem like any of these shelters are going to hold up as well as they think in these deep winters. Like they're all going to have to make adjustments. I mean, going back to previous seasons when they had previous like really deep cold,
Mhm.
they all of those structures looked more like Jody's, where they were dug into the ground, log cabin walls
Yeah,
all around the side. Like I don't think, tarps, and if your building is made up of branches and tarps, it's not going to keep the cold out, I think, as well as you think.
yeah,
But
late
we'll
game.
see. And also, um, I do feel like in general, women on the show technically prioritize shelter more than going after food immediately.
Yeah,
Um,
they do,
all
and
at the very least in this season, I mean, all of the women have made it a point to go after, or majority of them, because Jody, we saw it, and we saw it, Melanie, we saw it, all
mhm.
prioritizing setting up their permanent shelters first. And again, like we said, like in the winter, yeah, that's important, but it's also really hard to hunt in the winter. So you need to catch your
Yeah.
stride now,
Mhm.
getting to know your area, knowing where you can catch
Yeah.
food. So
Yeah, you just need, I think the best bet is you want to prioritize your shelter, obviously, but you want it to be like a project. Like you don't need to spend like 5 hours or 6 hours a day. Like you just like set the first base of logs and then you're like doing things.
right,
The one thing I will say about, like, I know the women do the shelter. And this is just from past seasons, and I actually just recently binged season 9 this entire week before
right,
this then that one. I just noticed that they don't need as much food as guys. Like they
right.
can live a little longer. The one chick from season, I don't know where you are, but like
Mhm.
somebody got to the end and like I felt like she was barely hunting. Like she was
Right.
just doing the basics and she had a decent shelter. And I,
Yeah.
some of these guys are also huge. They're big dudes. Like they need a lot of food, like off the bat. Like I'm hungry, I'm hungry, I'm hungry.
Right. I mean, yeah, and that's just different body types too,
Yeah.
because like yeah, men usually have more muscle. Women usually have a little bit more fat reserves that they carry on them. So, I mean, perfect example of this is Mikey on the show today.
Yeah.
Today, I mean, Mikey is a big dude. He actually was successful on hunting, and got a grouse, and he's in trouble. I mean, we saw. I mean, I honestly thought he was going to be our first tap. So
Me too, man. I really did. Like
they
he
left
would
us on a little bit of a cliffhanger where he's struggling with. I don't know what that is. I mean, it seems like a little bit more than just being like hunger pains. Like it seems like
Mhm.
his body's fighting him on something because he says he's in pain and like active pain. It's not like hunger pains.
Yeah, I feel like they didn't do that little like pop up of text because they
Right.
want like episode three. They want like the cliffhanger. Like
Yeah.
they'll probably show us like me probably 5, 10 minutes in
Right.
about that.
Right.
But yeah, like if he didn't get that grouse, he definitely would have tapped 100%.
Oh yeah. I mean, and he's probably the biggest contestant out there. I mean, so like that's not surprising. I mean, also talking about Mikey, him getting lost. I mean, I also thought he was going to tap out there,
Yeah,
like kind of
yeah,
shoot
for
a
sure.
flare.
Yeah,
I
because he was like
mean,
tired and
right. I wonder if they're required to have that flare on them no matter where they go, if
probably.
or if they can just keep it in camp. But like I'm assuming because like it's
Well,
I never thought about this. I mean, have you had that where someone
or
got
someone's
that
lost.
lost? Yeah. We
Yeah,
might have once or twice.
I wonder if they keep that little like mic or the walkie on them because I always think like, what if someone falls and breaks their leg?
Right.
You know
That's
what I
what
mean?
I'm
Like,
thinking.
and like that walkie probably has like pinpoint
Right.
satellite accuracy. That's what I
Right.
would. There was a season I think where somebody was worried about wolves or something, and they had to like they showed like the actual camera crew coming in to get them like both simultaneously. I think I don't remember what season it was, but
Right.
and I didn't think he was near camp, and I just don't. I could be wrong here, but that satellite phone has to have because you can break your leg.
Right.
You can't like just because you're near the drop point. I don't think that
Right. Right. No,
yeah,
I
by these
understand.
trees. Yeah.
So we'll say, but I mean, I think there's a lot of exposure for Mikey being the first one out,
Yeah, yeah, he's definitely the front runner right now.
or lay them painted. I think also I wonder what's going on with Taz because his camera work seems the worst out of everyone. He was in the episode the least, I think.
Do you think he was
Um,
in there less than Ann?
ooh, okay, yeah, maybe, but
I
that's
thought Ann was just like, "Hey, I have drop shock," and then I felt like I never saw her again.
yeah, that's true.
Because remember,
But like,
Taz burned down his little smoker and stuff, and
yeah, that,
he was just
that's
throwing
true.
water, like just like a little cup of water, like on it. It was actually really
That's all
funny.
he had, man.
I
But
know
like,
it was just funny.
I just him trying to smoke that fish this early on. I like the idea. I think it's necessary. Like,
He rushed it.
right. Well, I think it's one of those things where yeah, it's something you're going to need to do at some point if you have like an abundance of fish. But one fish lasts you what, like 2, 3 days, maybe at tops. But like,
Mhm. I think if you
consume
needed to
those
catch one,
calories.
yeah, eat that. Like you're saying, like
Yeah,
if you caught like five in a sitting, then it's like, okay, now I maybe should consider doing this because I
right,
have success.
right. But smoking that, I mean, he lost an entire
Yeah,
fish. I mean, who knows
and
if
it was.
he's
I
going to
thought it was
get
pretty
another one.
decent size too.
Oh yeah, I mean those pikes that they can get. I mean, they've all been pretty big. So,
Hmm.
um, but yeah, I mean, him burning down the smoker was, not as good as burning down your whole entire
Your shelter, yeah, but it like
shelter.
went
But
up. It was like an instant.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's a tough blow. He seemed to handle it pretty well. Pretty confident that he's probably going to catch some more fish, but man, losing that, all that. I mean, I don't really think he got a bite of any of that
Yeah,
fish.
I don't think he did either.
Yeah, like that just seemed like a waste to me. So
Yeah, yeah. So I kind of the problem with these beginning episodes too is there's so much focus, and I know I just said like I kind of like it, like knowing about the backstory, but there's like
but
I would say like probably 20% of the episode is you just are hearing and talking about flashbacks of the
right,
characters. It really doesn't start picking up till as soon as somebody drops, that's when it
right,
really starts to pick
right,
up.
right.
Because
And
now
I
the
mean, and
camera
that needs
time
to
is being
happen.
spread out more.
Right. And
Yeah.
I like at this point not knowing, but again, it's one of those things where yeah, you get more of the backstory. You get introduced to these people. You get your like who you're rooting for, who you think it's gonna like
Mm.
not make it all the way. Um, Again, I think this group is a little bit weaker than the other one, but that could just be. I mean, that's just me based on food sourcing. I think that's
Yeah,
more than a shelter. I think, especially at the beginning, it's food source because I do think that you can protect yourself from the elements enough in most
the early game,
situations.
you're saying. Yeah.
Well, early game, but even like as you go, like it's like you can get through one bad night of like anything.
Mhm.
I think with the
Mhm.
gear they have, like sleeping bag
Yeah.
and stuff like that, it's when like if you don't have something set up to protect you from the rain and you have to sit in the
And
rain
the
for two,
snow,
three
yeah.
days, yeah, and the
Hmm.
snow, like but like I think early game is all about how much food you catch, especially
Yeah.
in the season. I will say they did paint this episode making it seem like the winter is coming in a little bit faster than I previously thought. And that could really be the case from where they are. Like fall could be
Yeah,
really
I don't
short.
know. I don't know how high up in them. I don't, not an expert on the Earth, but
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
I think it
Right.
might be
Right.
higher up than we think. Just because they're starting early doesn't mean that it's going to be warmer longer.
Right. Right. Um, so I mean the last two, like any thoughts on Wyatt and Anne?
That's what I'm saying. I don't know really know much about Anne. Like she just the
Right.
culture shock. Wyatt was fine to me. I mean,
Right.
I did enjoy like I thought his commentary was funny. Like I did like he could be interesting to watch. Like I liked him building his net. Like I always
Yeah.
find that stuff interesting where these people are like creating their things and
Yeah. I mean him catching fish I think is huge, shows success. That like he can catch food where he is, which is
mm.
great. He is a character. I think he's funny. I don't know how long me personally like, um, because sometimes I think he can get a little bit obnoxious, but I
Oh,
think
for
he's a
sure. I mean,
funny
yeah.
guy. Um, but and Anne, I mean, now that you say, I thought Taz had the least amount of a showtime, but yeah, she was in the beginning episode. I mean, to the point where either Anne or Taz, I mean, one of those two, like, because we saw shots of Jody film, which I don't
Yeah.
know if they just had to like fill time or whatever, but
Yeah, probably. And I
I
mean,
don't know.
besides Melanie in the beginning, we didn't really see. It was really just kind of it was a lot of Mikey just because he went through the most like turmoil,
Well,
and
yeah,
then Taz near the end. But
right.
who? Okay, so now wrapping up, like, where are you still? Is Lee still the leader in your clubhouse?
Yeah, I still think Lee is like the strongest. Again, I think it's mostly the lifestyle they're living coming into it. Because
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I think one of the things is also like being alone. They're truly alone out there. They don't get like much
Hmm.
contact. I think they have like weekly medical check-ins. Like so they do get like a weekly session with someone.
Yeah.
I don't know if they have like radio talk sessions, but like they talk about like being in solitary confinement in prison and people going like literally nuts,
Yeah.
you know,
So
like
if
escaping and
anybody
stuff.
is watching and like a contestant and they actually are like, "Hey, I'll come on and talk to you." We're obviously open to that, and those are the type of questions that we're going to ask you, like what behind, not like anything like about like diving deep in the show, but like how often are you getting checked? How often are
Right.
you? They're just like, "Hey, are you alive?" And it's just like that
Yeah, yeah.
type
Or
of
if
thing. Like,
like
I just don't know.
I don't know. I mean, like in today's day and age too, like it could be that like I'm assuming at some point like History Channel's legal team gets involved and like
Yeah.
sets and reviews all of these protocols and says it could be like, yo, like it's psychologically unhealthy to send these people out alone. Like you have to give them like an hour long like session with
Yeah.
someone like to
But
talk to them or
that
something.
money, the money is
Or
probably what
like
the.
at least a psychological check-in. Like I wonder if that
Mhm.
happens at some point. Because like as realistic as this show is, and like as confident like as I am, like that this show is everything it says it is, like all of those legal hurdles and like
Mhm.
the biggest thing is you don't want anyone to actually, you
Die.
know, die, right? So like all the interesting things that they'll have to do to protect that. I'm curious to see like what what goes on in the backgrounds to make sure that doesn't happen.
I will say though, if somebody did die on the show, it would turn it
Yeah.
up.
Oh, 100%. But I think
It
that would
would
also
turn it
be
up.
the last season.
Like, yeah, like if somebody's
Yeah.
like, "Hey, oh, they're setting a record. They're out there 120 days," and
Yeah.
they go and they're just like frozen and like,
Right.
I
Right.
mean, it would be terrible, but it would be like, "Whoa, this show is real." but I
No,
don't think
yeah.
it's that level. I think
I
as
don't think
they,
it
I
was ever
think
that.
I like your point about the way. I think the checks like in the
Mm,
beginning they're probably not as common, but I think as we start getting in like the 50s and it's
mm.
cold, they got to be checking in like once a day. I think
I'm sure. Like, I don't know if they
like you're
have any
alive.
vital
They just
monitors or something like that. I I don't know if like it could be as simple as like there's like
just
some
respond.
receptor,
Just
like or
yeah,
like
just push
some
this.
receptor they have
Yeah,
to push to say,
yeah.
hey, I'm
Just say I'm
checking in,
here.
something like
Yeah,
that, where it's like if you don't do this, we're gonna come and find you. And
right.
if you have to do that, you're out, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
I'm thinking, yeah, I like that. Like you, because I think I've seen in actually in season 9, like the way they say they're going to web check you, they don't call in, they just send a message and then
right,
you have to like respond. So maybe it's just like you need to hit this once a day to show that you're alive at this
right,
time or
right,
whatever.
right.
And
Like the
then like
famous
they are like, hey, we're
Odell.
just coming once a week. This is all speculation, people. This is all speculation, but
Right, right. But I'm
who
sure
knows?
they have checks like that. I'm sure it's way. I'm sure they're accessible a lot more than you would like to think in these things.
Yeah.
But it's all for safety. Like it's like
Yeah.
if
Yeah. It's all safety.
that's
Yeah,
not
for
the
sure.
case, you're kind of crazy. So, but yeah,
You
I
got
mean
anything
that's
else?
it. No,
All right.
that's it. Like I said, as opposed to last episode, which is very food hunting oriented, this was a lot of shelter building. I think,
Yeah.
which is interesting. But until those shelters get put up to the elements,
The test. Yeah.
get
Uh-huh.
tested, you don't really get any interest in those shelters. But you know, one thing I will say is like a lot of people say that they're setting up their permanent shelters and things like that. And like I said, like Jody's really the only one that I saw that really compares. But like in the past, we've seen people like, hey, I'm gonna make it so I have a chimney, I have an oven in here, like they've
Yeah.
built in indoor fireplaces. Like I haven't really seen any of that setup yet. And that's concerning because again, you do not want to have to go outside, set up your fire. So even then, like I think these shelters compared to past season, compared to like maybe Jody's, they're still pretty primitive.
Yeah.
So, but
The
again,
show starts. The show starts next week.
yeah.
We've met
So
everybody. It'll be day. I haven't even seen any like it's day blank. Like when they show like how many people are left.
oh yeah,
So
we're
I
at
think it starts next week. Like day
yeah.
episode 3 is when it's going to begin.
Yeah, so I think first episode they went through like day 6, I think was the last one I saw, and then
Okay.
this one we had, I think the latest one I saw was day 8. So we're probably about a
Oh
week
wow.
and a half in.
Okay.
So yeah, but we'll see. I mean, I'm excited for the season. We're off to the races. We'll see if
Yeah.
Mikey survives. I mean, hashtag pray for Mikey because I don't know if he's gonna get through.
Yeah. We'll see. Thanks for watching, everybody. We will be back next week for episode 3. We have a ton of other stuff going on. We have Vanderpump. We have Challenge coming out. We have Claim to Fame, Bachelor. I do Love Island. I do Love Hip Hop Daily Reviews. Tons of stuff. So check us out.
Those Love Island reviews, I really enjoy. I've been watching them.
Oh
They
God.
give me little clips. I don't watch that show, but it does keep me up to date, so I can talk about it with other people that do watch it. So
Yeah, I
check it
mean
out,
it, and
guys.
the other thing is like the U.S. version starts in like a few weeks, so I'm gonna be like doing like triple duty. So it's all for the people. So keep that in
Yeah.
mind when you're like, well, because I watched 5 episodes of TV today. But all right, so we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for watching. See ya.
Thanks. Bye.